Welcome back. Let us begin by taking a deep breath, a simple, conscious breath. Inhale gently and exhale softly. Allow the mind to settle into this moment. Today, we turn toward one of the most profound truths of human existence, the truth of non-duality, as revealed through the life and teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Sri Ramana was not a philosopher in the ordinary sense. He offered no new doctrine, no complex rituals, no intricate system of metaphysics. His teaching was simplicity itself. Know who you are, and all else will fall into place. He did not ask anyone to believe, but to see, directly, inwardly, silently. Many said that simply sitting before him in silence was enough to quiet their minds and reveal the peace that words cannot express. When asked to teach, he would often remain silent, and when he spoke, his words were few, luminous, and direct, always pointing the seeker back to the source of the I. Ramana Maharshi's message can be distilled into a single essence. The self alone exists. Everything else is an appearance in it. To him, duality, the sense of I and you, this and that, good and bad, was not reality, but illusion. It is like mist rising before the morning sun, appearing dense but vanishing the moment the light of awareness shines upon it. Today, we live in a world that magnifies duality, division, identity, and difference. We divide life into success and failure, pleasure and pain, mine and yours. Our relationships, our beliefs, even our spirituality are often built upon this hidden foundation of separation. Yet, Ramana Maharshi's teaching invites us to see through this illusion, not through argument, not through belief, but through direct self-awareness. He did not say, transcend the world. He said, transcend the idea of separation, because when the sense of I and other fades, what remains is wholeness, unbroken, indivisible, peaceful.
Duality, how it arises and how it dissolves through the simple yet transformative practice of self-inquiry or Ātma vichara. We will see that overcoming duality is not a new attainment, but a recognition of what is eternally true. That the self, your true nature, is ever free, ever complete, and beyond all opposites. So as we continue, I invite you to listen not merely with the intellect, but with stillness, to feel, beneath the words, the living silence from which they arise. Let us begin. Duality, as Ramana Maharshi often said, is not inherent in reality. It is a creation of the mind. It begins the moment we identify with the body and mind and say, I am this person. This simple yet powerful assumption, I am this, gives rise to all other distinctions, I and you, inside and outside, mine and yours, success and failure, birth and death. But who is this I? Who is this self that claims ownership, that fears, that desires, that struggles? Ramana Maharshi said, the ego is nothing but a thought, the thought I. All other thoughts arise only after it. Therefore, the ego is the root of the mind. Pause for a moment and reflect on that. The entire world of experience, our joys and sorrows, our relationships and possessions, unfolds only after this sense of I appears. When the I thought arises in the morning, the world arises with it. When the I thought subsides in deep sleep, the world disappears. So the rise and fall of the world are tied to the rise and fall of the ego. Ramana often used a beautiful analogy. Imagine a screen on which a movie is projected. Characters appear and disappear, dramas unfold, battles are fought, loves are lost and found, but the screen remains untouched, unchanging, ever still. The ego is like mistaking the actor on the screen for the screen itself. We forget that the drama of duality plays upon the backdrop of our own being, pure consciousness. When we identify with the actor, the body and mind, we are caught in duality. When we remember that we are the screen, the unmoving witness, duality loses its hold. But the ego is subtle. It does not merely say, "I am this body." It hides behind every experience. When we feel anger, it says, "I am angry." When we feel joy, "I am happy." When we seek enlightenment, "I am seeking." It even disguises itself as the spiritual seeker, the one trying to get rid of the ego. Ramana smiled at this paradox and said, "The ego's final trick is to take itself to be the seeker of liberation. When you search for the ego, you will find it is not there." That is why he discouraged trying to destroy the ego by effort or willpower. He said, "To destroy the ego, you must first know what it is. Then you will see that it has no real existence." The ego, he explained, is like a phantom thief who shouts, "Stop, thief!" and runs ahead of the crowd. We run after it endlessly, never realizing it was the illusion itself that was crying out. So the question arises, how do we uncover the truth of the I? How do we see what the ego really is? Ramana's answer was direct and disarmingly simple. Ask, "Who am I?" He did not mean to answer this question intellectually. He meant, turn inward toward the feeling of I itself. Trace it back to its source as a river returns to the ocean. Each time a thought arises, "I am the doer," "I am the sufferer," "I am this or that," gently ask, "Who is this I?" and bring the attention back to the one who perceives. If you persist in this inward gaze, the I thought, which appeared so real, begins to fade. Its roots dissolve in the silence of awareness. Then, Ramana says, the true self, which is not the personal I, but pure being, shines forth effortlessly. He described it beautifully. The ego is like the shadow cast by the self. When the light of inquiry shines, the shadow disappears and the self alone remains. To overcome duality, therefore, we do not need to conquer the world, or even purify every thought. We only need to understand the false center from which duality arises. When that center is seen as empty, all opposites lose their power, like waves settling naturally upon the calm surface of the sea. In that silence, the sense of I and you fades. What remains is pure awareness, still, radiant, undivided. That is the beginning of freedom. And it is from here that we move into Ramana's method of liberation, the path of self-inquiry. Let us now turn to the heart of Ramana Maharshi's teaching, the path of self-inquiry, known in Sanskrit as Ātma. When seekers came to him and asked, "How can I find peace? How can I overcome ignorance? How can I know God?" he would reply with one simple instruction. Inquire within. Ask, "Who am I?" At first glance, this may appear too simple, almost too brief to contain an entire path. But Ramana said that this single question, when asked with sincerity and persistence, has the power to dissolve the entire illusion of duality. Ordinarily, our attention flows outward, toward objects, sensations, thoughts, and experiences. We identify with what we perceive: the body, the mind, the emotions, the roles we play. We say, I am this person, I am a teacher, I am a parent, I am happy, I am suffering. Ramana would gently ask, to whom do these thoughts occur? If we answer, to me, he would say, then inquire, who am I? This question does not demand an answer in words. It is not about philosophy, not about belief. It is a movement of awareness, a turning of attention away from the outer world toward the source of the I. It is like reversing the current of a river back to its spring. Ramana explained that the first thought to arise in the mind is the I thought, the sense of individuality. All other thoughts about the world, others, or God follow it like branches from a single trunk. If we seek to cut the branches, they will grow again. But if we look for the root and see that the root itself is unreal, the whole tree withers naturally. So when a thought appears, I am thinking, I am afraid, I am meditating, simply pause. Don't fight the thought. Don't chase it. Ask quietly, who is the one thinking this? Who feels this fear? Bring your attention back to the sense of I, the silent feeling of being. Follow that sense inward, not with effort, but with gentle curiosity. Where does this I arise from? Where does it subside in deep sleep or silence? As the attention dives deeper, thoughts lose their force. The I that once seemed solid begins to dissolve. What remains is pure awareness, not I am this or I am that, but simply I am. Ramana said, when the mind, which is the source of all thoughts, turns inward, the false I disappears, and the true self shines by itself. In that moment, there is no question of practice, no seeker, no path. There is only being, luminous, silent, unchanging. Duality has ended because the one who experienced duality has vanished. He described this as the state of self-abidance, Ātmanishta, resting in one's own nature. It is not an action or an effort. It is a natural stillness, like a flame undisturbed by wind. In this abidance, all opposites, pleasure and pain, success and failure, life and death, lose their hold. They are seen as passing waves on the ocean of consciousness. The ocean itself remains untouched. Many asked Ramana, should I repeat the words, who am I, like a mantra? He would say no. The question, who am I, is not meant to be repeated mechanically. It is a pointer directing your attention inward. When the question leads you to the source, remain there, silent. The goal is not to get an intellectual answer, such as, I am Brahman, or I am consciousness. Such answers belong to the mind, and the mind itself is the illusion. True inquiry ends not in a concept, but in silence. A silence that is alive, aware, and limitless. Self-inquiry to using a stick to stir a funeral pyre. When the fire has done its work, both the pyre and the stick are consumed. Similarly, self-inquiry burns away all false identifications, and in the end, even the inquiry itself dissolves. Nothing remains but the self, the infinite I, as he called it, the awareness that knows no other. This is not an attainment or an experience that comes and goes. It is our natural state, ever present, ever free. We only seem to lose sight of it because our attention is caught in the dream of duality. When attention returns home to its source, the dream fades, and we awaken as the self.
In this way, Ramana Maharshi showed that the key to overcoming duality lies not in endless seeking, but in simple seeing. When we ask, "Who am I?" and look directly into the one who seeks, the seeker disappears, and only the self remains. And that self, he said, is pure peace, pure love, and pure awareness. In the next part, we will see how this realization is not something to be gained in the future, but something that is always present, here, now, and forever. When Ramana Maharshi spoke about realization, he was clear that it is not something new to be attained. It is not a reward for effort, nor a state that appears in time. He said, "You are already the self. Realization is nothing but being what you already are." We are like someone wearing a necklace around their neck and searching for it everywhere else, in the world, in books, in other people, in spiritual experiences. We look high and low, only to discover in the end that what we sought was never apart from us. The self, pure awareness, has never been hidden. What hides it is only our attention caught up in thoughts that say, "I am this body, I am this name, I am this story." The sun of the self is always shining, but we imagine clouds where there are none. Ramana explained that the purpose of practice is not to produce the self, but to remove the illusion that it was ever lost. He said, "The self is always realized. It is the mind that imagines bondage and then seeks liberation. It is as if a man dreams that he's trapped inside a burning house. Terrified, he searches for a way out. Then he wakes up and sees that there was never a house, never a fire, never even a search. The awakening itself is the end of the dream." So it is with us. Liberation is not an event that happens in time. It is the recognition of what has always been true. When the ego dissolves, when the false identification fades, there is no new experience to claim. There is only the shining clarity of what has never changed. Ramana called this recognition the natural state, sahaja sthiti, effortless, spontaneous being. It is not something to maintain or hold on to. It is our original nature before the play of thought began. He often reminded seekers that even the idea of seeking can become an obstacle. The thought, "I must realize the self," implies that the self is somewhere else, in the future, in another state, in a different condition. But who is the one who must realize it? If that I is investigated, it dissolves, and what remains is the very reality we were searching for. The beauty of this truth is its utter simplicity. The self does not need to be purified because it is never tainted. It does not need to be protected because nothing can threaten it. It is the silent witness of all change, birth and death, pleasure and pain, ignorance and knowledge. These come and go like ripples on the surface of the sea, while the depth remains undisturbed. When the mind rests in that depth, duality cannot stand. The opposites that once ruled our lives, joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame, lose their sharpness. They are seen as movements of the same energy, expressions of the same self. Ramana used to say, "The realized one sees only the self. The ignorant one sees many, and yet the vision of both is in the same consciousness." To enlightened, nothing is separate. The world does not vanish, but its apparent solidity dissolves. What remains is unity, one light shining through countless forms. In that vision, compassion arises naturally. Because there is no longer you and I, there is no boundary for love. Helping another becomes as spontaneous as moving one's own hand. Peace flows without effort, because conflict requires division, and division has ended. Ramana never claimed that such realization made life outwardly dramatic. In fact, it made life exquisitely simple. He lived quietly at the foot of Arunachala, eating what was given,
sleeping where he was, and radiating a stillness that touched all who came near him. When asked how to live after realization, he said, "Just be still. Let whatever comes come, and whatever goes, go. Find out what remains. That which remains, the unmoving awareness that witnesses all, is what we truly are. It was never born and never dies. It is not bound by thought, by memory, by time. It is not distant or hidden. It is this very consciousness hearing these words now. In realizing this, we come to see that there is no path and no goal. The traveler, the journey, and the destination are all one. There was never duality to overcome, only a misunderstanding to dissolve. When that misunderstanding ends, we do not find a new self. We simply wake up to the one that was always here, silent, radiant, infinite. When all striving ends and the mind falls silent, what remains is the quiet radiance of being itself. Ramana often said that his real teaching was not in words, but in silence. He called this Mauna Upadesa, the teaching of stillness. Silence, he said, is ever speaking. It is the perennial flow of language that is interrupted by words. To sit in his presence was to feel that silence directly, not a silence of absence, but one that was full, alive, overflowing with peace. Asked, they sat before him and felt that all searching had come to rest. That silence is not unique to a place or a person. It is not confined to Arunachala or to any form. It is the silence of your own heart, the space in which all thoughts arise and subside. It is what you have always been before the first thought appeared. If we truly listen now, in this moment, that silence is already here, beneath these words, between each breath, within the awareness that hears. It is not something to create. It is something to notice. When we turn attention inward, we find that the source of thought is the same as the source of the world, and both dissolve into the same stillness. The knower and the known merge, and only knowing remains, pure, formless, beyond the reach of mind. This is why Ramana did not prescribe elaborate practices or complex philosophies. His path was direct, immediate. He said, "Be still and know that you are the self." The simplicity of those words hides their depth. To be still is not to suppress movement, but to see clearly that all movement arises in what never moves. In that stillness, the mystery of existence unfolds effortlessly. Life continues. The body acts, words are spoken, the world appears and disappears. Yet deep within, there is no doer, no one acting. The current of life flows by itself, guided by a deeper intelligence, untouched by desire or fear. To live in this way is to live as the self, not as a person trying to be spiritual, but as pure being, free of self-consciousness. Actions arise from compassion, not intention. Love becomes the natural fragrance of being, not a discipline to be practiced. This is the real meaning of overcoming duality. It is not a matter of destroying the world or rejecting experience, but of seeing through the illusion of separation that divides life into opposites. When the false sense of I disappears, the world is seen as it truly is, a single, undivided expression of consciousness. Difference between within and without, sacred and ordinary, birth and death. He rests in the self, knowing that all forms are fleeting shadows of one light. To such a one, nothing is profane, nothing is apart from the divine. Ramana often said, "There are no two selves, one to know the other. The self alone is." To realize this is not to become something new, but to wake up to what has always been. You are not the body, not the mind, not even the sense of being a separate witness. You are the awareness in which all these arise and dissolve. You are the silence that remains when every thought has finished speaking. So let us rest for a few moments in that silence. Let every word, every idea, every effort subside. Let the mind be still, not by force, but by recognition that what we truly are needs no improvement, no becoming, no attainment. In this stillness, the search ends. The seeker and the sought are one. The journey dissolves into the destination. The wave recognizes itself as the ocean. The dreamer awakens and sees that the dream was never apart from the dreamer. This is the freedom that Ramana Maharshi pointed to, the natural, effortless peace of being what you are. It cannot be described, yet it can be lived. It is not somewhere else, not in the future, not in the words of a book or the blessing of another. It is here, now, in this very awareness that hears these words. So when the talk ends, do not let it end within you. Let silence continue to speak. Let every thought remind you to turn inward and ask, to whom does this thought arise? Follow it back to the source, again and again, until even the question dissolves and only stillness remains. In that stillness, duality has no place. There is no world to fear, no self to defend, no other to love, for all is love itself. All is the self. All is one. Let us close with Ramana's own words, the essence of his life and teaching. There is neither creation nor destruction, neither bondage nor liberation, neither seeker nor realized being. This is the ultimate truth. May this silence deepen within you. May it become your constant companion, the unmoving peace behind every thought, the eternal presence in every breath. And may you come to see, as Ramana saw, that you have never been two, that the self you seek is the very awareness that is seeking. Be still. Be what you are.